Okay, this is episode 20, post-pill chats with Gabby Borgerink. I am so freaking excited. Today is a very special day. I get to welcome onto the podcast the very first guest ever, other than Brandon, but he doesn't count. And today I'm so freaking stoked to be talking to Miss Gabby Borgerink, who is a holistic nutritionist. She specializes in balancing hormones and working with women post-pill journey. And her and I connected on Instagram, I think a couple of years ago, and we kind of just followed each other parallel. Our journeys kind of have bumped into each other a couple times along the way. And anyways, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Gabby onto the podcast. Gabby, I'm so freaking stoked to have you on today.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This conversation has been a long time coming, and I know you and I have chatted in DMs a few little bit. We go back and forth on like comment threads on each other's posts, but we've never actually met in person. So this is the first time that we get to actually interact. But it feels like I know you.
Yeah. Social media can do that.
It's so funny. I know we were talking before the recording started, and I was just saying when you grow up, your parents tell you don't talk to strangers, and now we both talk to strangers on the internet for a living. So like, times have changed, mama. Times have changed.
Yeah.
Okay,
funny.
Let's kick it off. I would love for you to share, if you're cool with it, just who is Gabby Borgerink and what led you to the work that you're doing now?
So I'm a holistic nutritionist, like you had said before. I work primarily with women, and I've started getting really passionate about women's health and just the education around it, because I started realizing there's a huge lack of education there, and a lot of us are growing up not knowing about our cycles and our hormones and how to take care of ourselves properly. And then my journey started way back in high school. I was on Accutane for my skin, and you have to go on the birth control pill because of the birth defects that can happen. So I ended up going on the pill. Yeah, that's how intense it is. And it's actually considered a chemotherapy drug.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm like, that's great. My poor liver and my poor body. Yeah. So I went to go on the pill then. I was around 15, I think. Yeah. And then I just stayed on it because I was like, well, everyone's on the pill in high school. So I'm like, I may as well just stay on it because everyone's on it. And then I want to say around 19, I started to get really intense mood swings and feel very down. And I just wasn't myself anymore. And it even affected my relationship with my boyfriend, to the point where it was really rocky. And I was like, he's going to want to break up with me because I'm just crazy. And I had no reason behind it. I just didn't know what was going on, and no one talks about it. And I started doing research, and I found that the pill can be linked to depression and mood changes and all that sort of stuff. And so I was like, wow, maybe this is what's going on with me. No one else can give me answers. So I just went off the pill by myself because I knew my doctor wasn't really supportive of it.
Yeah, classic.
And yeah. And then within a few months of being off of it, I was like, wow, I kind of feel like myself again, which is crazy. And so after that, I went to school for holistic nutrition, and then the ball just kind of kept rolling, and I just was like, wow, this is where I need to focus, because the more and more I spoke out on Instagram and connected with people like you, I was like, so many people are going through this and no one's talking about it, or there's just no resources for women. So that's
crazy.
Kind of, yeah.
It's crazy to me. And you touched on a couple of just so important things, such important things. Number one, you said I felt like I was crazy, and I can't even tell you how many times I said that to myself, thought that to myself. Same thing, my relationship was kind of struggling, and he was like, how can I help you? And I was just like, I feel crazy. I don't know how to explain other than that. I feel nuts, out of my mind. So number one, you mentioned that, but number two, you and I both got prescribed birth control at 15 by our family doctors. And these are well-intentioned, wonderful human beings who are just doing their job. My question to you, because I've had this conversation with so many women in person, on Instagram, my friends, especially as I've been going on my own journey parallel alongside yours, why are doctors still prescribing birth control, hormonal birth control to women, especially to young women, and is it safe?
Yeah, I don't think it's safe, especially in those prime development years where you're still growing and developing, and your hormones haven't figured themselves out yet, like your cycles and all of that. And so it's like putting synthetic hormones in there, the mix is just not going to help. And I just feel like there's an epidemic of mental health issues, especially with young people. And it makes me think, like, is this connected to it? Because I feel like almost every girl growing up was on the pill. But the sad part is that the doctors really don't know better. Like, they don't really know half the stuff that, like, we know about it now. They haven't put it together, and they've only been given this birth control as a tool. That's really only the tool they have to help anyone that comes in with any sort of hormonal issue or heavy periods or irregular cycles. So like, it's as much as they want to be upset with the doctors, it's like, well, that's really all they have, right? So it's just frustrating, because it's like, we need to do better, especially for like young girls, because you go on it so young and then you're on it for 5-10 years, and then you have these host of issues, right?
And this is why self-advocacy, like, I'm such a huge believer in self-advocating and doing your own research and just tuning into your body. I feel like most women, and I'm going to generalize here, most women at like 15, 16 go on the pill for like 2 or 3 different reasons. They have acne and they want to clear it up. They have heavy, painful periods, or they don't want to get pregnant. And they are so scared of getting pregnant that their doctor's like, well, we'll go on the pill and that's great. That'll solve everything. And what I learned, and I would love if you could talk about this a little bit, because you definitely have more of an education around it than I do. But what I learned once I dove into my post-pill journey and really researching the effects on the body and what birth control actually does to your body, I learned that you don't even have a normal period or a regular bleed while you're on birth control. And so for myself personally, I was on birth control for 10 years. 10 years of putting synthetic hormones into my body. And then you couple that with like so many different rounds of antibiotics and chronic stress and, binge drinking and probably eating some not so great things in my earlier teen years. And then figuring out like my autoimmune disease and mental health stuff. And like, that's a lot of heaviness on the body. So could you just talk about kind of what birth control actually does in your body? Talk about maybe the myth of like when you can get pregnant, because I don't think a lot of women actually know this. When I tell them about like the 4 weeks in your cycle and it tracking, they're like, wait, what? So could you talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, we have different phases of our cycle, and ovulation, like, I think we've just kind of brainwashed to think that like you can get pregnant any day of your cycle. Like, there's just been this fear of like, health class was just like, don't get pregnant, like just take the pill and yeah, that'll solve your problems. But you're really only so we are only fertile for 12 to 24 hours max. So that when that egg is released to ovulation, it can only live for up to 24 hours. But men are fertile all the time. So, and then sperm can live in you for up to 5 days. So if you had sex, 4 days before you ovulated, that's like your fertile window right there. So you're really only fertile for up to 6 days out of your cycle. And meanwhile, we're all paranoid, thinking that it can happen at any time.
Oh, and ruining.
We're just not taught to like pinpoint and figure out where that is in our cycle. Because if you know that, then you're golden. Like, like you don't have any stress. You're like, okay, I couldn't possibly get pregnant at this point in my cycle because I've already ovulated.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
I talk to women about this when we have conversations about it. And then they ask me, they go, so what are you using for birth control method? And I tell them that I started a year ago now, it'll be a year in January. I started with the basal temp thermometer. So you just like stick a little thermometer under your tongue each morning. I use a tracking app. Along with that, I also track with the moon. And then I'm very conscientious daily of asking myself, where am I in my cycle? What day? How am I feeling? So then I can pretty well pinpoint the exact day that I'm ovulating. It's not a perfect science. I know there's like LH tests and stuff you can take. And you can totally talk about that if you want, because I know that you have a more intense process maybe. But oh shoot, what was I going to say about it? Oh, they just asked me, they're like, well, how do you like not get pregnant? That's like the only reason that I know of most women staying on the pill after the fact. They're just scared of this pregnancy thing. And it's so crazy to me that we stay on this damaging synthetic product, that sure, maybe could help a few problems. Like there's maybe some women who experience different hormonal disorders that it helps them maybe sometimes. I just think the long-term damage though does so much. I just think it's so much more damaging than it is helpful. I totally lost my question. I was going to ask you there though. What was I? what was I going to ask you about there?
We were talking about the impacts on like long term, and then like figuring out ovulation and like the myths of.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any woman who's listening to this going, okay, like I'm listening now, and they might still be on birth control, hormonal birth control. They might have just come off and they're feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just feel like this isn't right for my body. What would be like your top tip for any woman who's just coming off or deciding to come off? And also, how can a woman figure out when her cycle is? How can she figure out when she's ovulating, when she's during what she's doing during follicular, when she's, like how can she figure out her cycle?
I would say the best book that just kind of is a great starting point is the Taking Charge of Your Fertility. That book is just so helpful. It has everything in there. It's a really thick book, so it's kind of something you should go like take your time and read through it. Okay. But it has everything in there, all the basics, and that is just to really help you figure out what's going on with your body, your hormones, ovulation, the signs and symptoms, and how you can track ovulation and track throughout your cycle. Or finding a fertility awareness educator is amazing. Like I taught myself the fertility awareness method. And then I went the step further this past year and I invested in a course with an instructor. And that just took it to the next level. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I thought I knew everything, but there's even more to learn about our bodies.
So always. So, yeah, who's the author on that, Taking Charge of Your Fertility again?
It's Tony Weschler. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the last name right.
Okay, and I'm totally going to link to that in the show notes that I put up of this for anybody listening that's like, oh, I want to get the name of that book. Okay, and you also have a course too. Should we talk about that for a second? Because I feel like that's really helpful for women who are like, I don't know where to start. So tell me about your course.
Yeah, so my course is exactly that. It's for women that are just like, I don't know what to do. Like I want to come off of it. Either they want to conceive or they just want to get rid of synthetic hormones, or if they are dealing with those symptoms like we experience where you're just not yourself anymore and your mood is just off. So this course I created is basically everything I needed when I was coming off of it, but I didn't have. So it has nutrition support, supplements, sleep, liver health, non-toxic living, like a ton of stuff packed into one. So I kind of work through each module and focus on each area and how the pill impacts that. So nutrient depletions, how it could impact your sleep, how it can impact your liver health and digestion and all that. And I go through it so that it's like a step-by-step module, like you can go by at your own pace with each module. And I also add one-on-one support. So there is 2 sessions with me so you can get more custom support. But I essentially created it because that's what I needed back then. I needed that support. And so I've just kind of compiled everything I've learned from school, from my personal experience, and put it into this course.
Isn't that so beautiful that we end up creating what we needed and we end up teaching things that we needed to learn? Like on a totally side note, it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about meditation and mindfulness and stress reduction and really like bringing that forth to women, because it's something that I struggled with for so many years. And then when you figure out the answer, you're like, oh my God, this needs to be available. I would be selfish if I kept this to myself. So, okay. So they can just go onto your website to find the course details. That's correct?
Yeah. Yep. And through my Instagram as well. Yeah.
Okay. And your Instagram is, okay. You go ahead.
It's GB health_wellness.
Nice. And she posts really great stuff, you guys. Like, just to shout you out real quick, your content is always, you can just feel the energy behind somebody's content. And I can always just feel like the intention behind your content is always to help and to serve. And that's something that I'm a huge proponent of. So I just think, well done.
Oh, thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, so you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, because I know based on your and my conversation with each other that we both had experiences with these things. So you talked about nutrient deficiencies, you talked about mood imbalances, hormonal imbalances, liver, like sluggish liver, cystic acne, and probably missing more, depression.
There's so many,
like loss of libido, all those kind of things, feeling crazy.
Yeah.
So would you be open to kind of sharing your experience with it? And I'll also share mine, and we can kind of just, for anybody listening who's like, sweet, that's all great and fine and dandy, but they don't understand. Like, can you just share like where you're coming from on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So my experience, like near the end of the pill, like I said, my mood was really bad. My energy was horrible. I had horrible gut issues. And I mean, it's not just the pill, I know, but it's like it's a bunch of things that kind of like compounded on each other. But I also had low libido. Like it was just horrible, and no one talks about it. So, and a lot of it is, I think, tied back to the nutrient deficiencies, and it's just creating a lot of issues in the body, and a lot of the hormones are not communicating with each other like they normally would. So we're having a lot of issues, kind of like a cascade effect of you're not having your normal cycle, your normal hormones, the normal benefits you get from those hormones. So you're going to end up having a lot of side effects and issues that come up, like the mood issues, the gut issues, stress, anxiety.
It's like, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it's like putting freaking apple juice in your car and like expecting it to run. You know what I mean? Like it might actually work. Like the consistency of apple juice is like kind of similar to gas. It might work for a little bit, but in the process, you're going to like absolutely wreck your transmission and your whatever, like, just, I don't know that much about cars. Brandon's better at that. But just to give an analogy, it's kind of like that. It's like you're putting this synthetic bullshit in your body and expecting your body to function. Your body is so wise. This is something that I learned in this journey, and why I'm so grateful for it, and why I would not go back and do anything different. I wouldn't, because I would not have the self-compassion, the intuitiveness, I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't know what I know today if I hadn't experienced it. And I just really learned that my body is so wise. And your body, it's like when you cut your hand, your body heals. You don't have to consciously think about like heal. Okay, now this cell go there and this cell go there. Your body does that for you. Yeah. And it's the exact same thing with our cycles. And I don't know exactly where along the way we kind of like misstepped, but it seems like we don't trust ourselves enough anymore. And because we don't trust ourselves, we're not confident in our health and wellness journeys. We don't listen to our intuition. And instead what we do is we just look outside of ourselves for everything. We look outside of ourselves for answers to our health. We go and talk to somebody in a white coat who, bless their souls, are totally trained in their area, but their area is like, you got a broken bone, I'll fix it. Do you need surgery? I'll fix it. Their area is not, oh, you have chronic stress and IBS. Like if you have chronic stress and IBS, a doctor is probably going to tell you to take Metamucil. And that's
like brand buds.
They did. That's exactly what happened to me. That's why I pursued my, like more of a natural holistic route, because I was like, okay, at 22, and by the way, I love my medical doctor. She's fantastic. She's super good at what she does, but she also has a loaded client load. She doesn't have time to read up on Eastern and Western and holistic practices and what's current. Like she doesn't have time. She's delivering babies. She's doing all this stuff. So bless her soul. But at 22, she told me, you have IBS and celiac disease, and it's neither of them are curable. Take some Metamucil. This is going to be your life now. And I was like, I'm 22. I don't know. I don't accept that. No. And that's what leads us both into pursuing self-advocacy. I found, would you be able to talk about something, because, and this is like I just love sharing all of it, the good, bad, ugly, and awesome. So something that I really struggled with, two things that I really struggled with post-pill. And like I said before, I was on the pill for 10 years. I was on like 6 different kinds, which was nuts. Wow. Yeah, so bad, right? I was on 6 different kinds, had lots of issues with it and without it. And then finally I switched. I went to the copper IUD. I thought, okay, this is the best option of the options. So when you know better, you do better, right? And so I switched to the copper IUD for a year, and then after a year or two maybe, and after that I was like, you know what? I just don't feel good having this thing in my body. Even if it's like just copper, and copper's antimicrobial, and even if it's okay, like I just don't feel like myself. I want to just be me with nothing in my body, if that makes any sense. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go off of the pill. This is kind of scary. So I had to further educate myself. I found out about tracking. I found out about basal temping. I found out about all these different other methods. And after I went off of the pill, like the last 2-3 years, honestly, for me, health-wise, have been the worst that I have experienced. The first year mentally, my skin, I had such crazy cystic acne that it was insane how painful my skin was. And I found that certain foods were triggering it, but it seemed to still come up every month, the week before my cycle, I would get these like painful cysts on my neck and my cheeks and that kind of thing. And my liver, it turns out through, I work really closely with my naturopath, and it turns out through different testing, my liver was so damaged from all of those things that I mentioned that now I'm taking liver support herbs and supplements, and I don't nearly drink as much alcohol as I used to. And I find now if I do drink alcohol, because I love social drinking, but when I do have a couple glasses of wine or a couple margaritas, like I feel it in my liver and in my body. I wake up sweaty. I don't sleep well. I'm anxious. I'm just like, oh God, the more you know, the more you know.
I can't handle it.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, can you talk a little bit, because I think sometimes the misconception is that your hormones are just like your sex hormones. Do you know what I mean? But they cover and are responsible for so many more bodily functions, and including the liver. Can you just talk kind of how the liver gets damaged and kind of how those hormones play and function with it?
Yep. So with the liver, it has two different phases of detoxification. And so when we are consuming all these synthetic hormones, on top of that, like you said, we have like poor nutrition. If we have exposure to other chemicals, like in our body care products and cleaning products, like just being out in the environment, it puts like a really big burden on the liver, and it becomes, I always say, it's like sluggish or overburdened, because it's just being bombarded with all of these things and it's not able to properly detoxify. And that kind of ties in with gut health as well, because the liver, every time it packages up stuff to get rid of, it throws it into our poop, and then we have to excrete it. Right. So if we're having constipation or any sort of gut issues too, all that stuff your liver's trying to package up and remove is just going to get recirculated in the body. So it's just kind of like a vicious, it's like a vicious cycle. And it's like, I see it with almost every woman that I talk to, or that I have a new client, I can guess that they will have some sort of gut issue with their acne, with the post pill. Like it all ties in together. It's crazy.
The body is a symbiotic system, and it knows what it should do, but when you overburden it like that for so long, that's why this conversation is so important. And that's why the work that you're doing is so important, because just teaching women to advocate for themselves and to really dive into, okay, what does my body need? What's right for me personally? That's everything. It's everything.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Okay. So knowing what you know now, would you ever go back on the pill?
No. No, I would not.
So rhetorical.
It's like, once you learn, like, ignorance is bliss, but like it's important to know these things. Unfortunately, it sucks because it just kind of like makes you like question everything going forward. But it's good because, like, again, you're your own advocate for your body. And I'm totally, like, a lot of people are like, oh, are you anti-birth control? And it's like, well, I am for myself, but I'm just pro-choice. Like, I want you to know that there's a lot of cons to it and there are some pros, but just to be aware of it, because a lot of us we're not told it when we're put on the pill. We're just told, here you go, just take the pack, come back every so often to get a repeat or whatever. And we're not told the damage that it can do or the long-term effects. And they don't even really know, like the doctors don't, they have no idea.
I know. And I think now, like, because this kind of conversation is happening more and more frequently, I think now more than ever, women are waking up to the fact that, oh, maybe this thing that I've been putting in my body isn't great for my body, and there are other options. I think now, like, this alongside and parallel with the breast implant illness, have you seen a lot about that?
Yes.
Like, I've just been seeing this explosion, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like 10 years ago, a lot of these women were getting breast implants thinking it's totally safe and fine. And then here's 10 years later, and you start to see the negative effects of chronic inflammation, disease, toxicity. And same thing with birth control. It's like, it takes 2 to 10 years for the symptoms to really like compound for anything. And then, well, that is why it's awesome, but also frustrating on the healing journey, because when you go off of the pill, I found for myself anyways, like, it's been the last 2-3 years, and I'm only now just balancing my hormones and really working so hard to heal my liver. And that comes from like food choices, and, I start my day with warm lemon water, and lifestyle choices, and not binge drinking anymore. And just, it takes time to learn what's right for you. It takes, time and self-advocating.
It does.
So, okay, if we're obviously both on the same page here with not neither of us would go back on the pill, it's safe to say.
No.
Caused a lot more damage than it did good. But anyways, what can women use then instead of birth control as a birth control method? Like what is the best thing that they can do to track their period and to use as a contraceptive?
Yeah, so there's so many different options, and actually in my course I'm trying to do like an unbiased standpoint and just show like all the pros and cons to every method, like every popular method, like the shot and the NuvaRing, the copper IUD, and all of those, just because I want people just to be educated. That's my biggest goal. So it really is just dependent on you, dependent on what's most important to you. Like if you don't mind having a foreign object inside of you, some people do well with the IUD. I personally don't. I've heard some stories and experiences, so like I couldn't go there. But some people love it and they have no issues with it. So it's really up to you. But a huge thing I advocate for, like we talked about earlier, is the fertility awareness method, just because I think it's so awesome. It can be used to both prevent and conceive a pregnancy. And it just gives you such an insight into your health and your hormonal health. So it's if testing for your hormones is super important and helpful, but if you don't have the money for that and you just kind of want to generally be able to track your hormones and your cycles, it gives you such good insight into like, are you producing enough progesterone, or are you even ovulating? Some people don't even know if they're ovulating every cycle. So that can be super helpful just in balancing your hormones. And then when you do want to have a baby, it's just so much easier because then you can show your doctor, okay, look here, I am ovulating or I'm not, or like, it's just, I think it's such a great tool. So I think everyone should be taught that.
Cool. That's awesome. And I'll link to your website and your course as well. I'm just writing that down so I don't forget. Okay. So next question for you. And I know that you will go over this in more detail in your course and that kind of thing for anybody who chooses to work with you here. And I hope that people will. But what are some basic tips that you can give on how we can support our body post-pill?
I would definitely focus on replenishing the nutrients. That would be like a huge first step I would take, because like I can guess probably like most women that are coming off the pill are fatigued, extremely low energy, they're low mood, and a lot of the nutrients that are the reason for that are the ones that are depleted by the pill. So it really just like all connects. So the B vitamins, I would definitely get on a B complex, the active B complex. That will help with energy like immensely. And magnesium for sure, that's depleted, and that's a really big one for stress. You probably take it every day, I'm guessing. It's a popular supplement.
Oh my God, I love it so much.
Yeah. It's so calming and relaxing for the body, and it helps with blood sugar management. It actually helps with your liver support as well. Same with the B vitamins, so that's really important. Zinc's one to look at as well, because our zinc is really depleted, especially with the pill. Like we have a zinc and copper imbalance, and that one can actually be linked to acne and skin health too. So if you have low zinc, you could have a lot of acne there too. And then I would look at supporting the liver, like we talked about. Like that's a huge one. So drinking like dandelion root tea. That's what I'm drinking right now.
Nice. What do you put in yours?
I just drink it black.
Just black? Oh, okay. I gotta buck up and like get at it, because I felt like when I tried it, I was like, oh, this isn't quite what I want. The flavor is not quite what I want.
It's really earthy. Like I like the earthy taste, but a lot of people don't like it. There is an everyday detox tea by Traditional Medicinals that has a dandelion in there, but it's like lemon flavor too, which kind of helps with that.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna get that one, because
yeah, it's a good one if you can't handle the full on. But you can make it like a latte too. I like doing that. I do that with like a lot of my clients. I'll add like some almond milk or some MCT oil and kind of make it like a little latte, and it's really good.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna try that. You've inspired me
to
get back on the dandelion tea. I do take specific liver supporting supplements, and then B complex. Man, it's crazy. I ran out of my B complex that I take for like probably a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm going to see my naturopath next week. Like, I'll just refill it when I go and see her. Yeah. My mood was so whack. I was just like, what is going on? Why do I feel so crazy right now all of a sudden? And like nothing had changed. And it wasn't even like my menses week or anything. I was just like, I feel nuts again. And then it was like clockwork. As soon as I got my B vitamins again, started taking them regularly, it just settles you. It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's the B6. The B6 has been linked to like mood and PMDD, so like the more depressive sort of feel, or like just when your mood's a bit erratic. that the B6 has been like shown in studies to be like a huge impact on that, which is crazy.
I
But
feel
it makes sense because we're all depleted by the pill, and like stress depletes B vitamins too. So it's like we're stressed, we're tired, we're on the pill, and then that
we're binge drinking, we get
yeah,
sick, we take antibiotics, like it all just like, God, our
it's
poor
all just like
bodies, hey? Oh,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
why,
it's
like,
a lot.
any woman listening to this who is feeling empowered and like, okay, sweet, I'm arming myself with some new information. Like, please, 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 no matter what you could do for yourself, just remember that healing isn't linear.
Yes, that's
You know,
important.
and you might take like 4 steps forward and 5 steps back and then 3 steps forward. And it's so important to just remember that progress is progress is progress. And so long as you just keep doing better for yourself each day and, you know, choosing the best options that you know how to choose in any given moment until you know better, and then choose those ones instead, like just be compassionate towards yourself, because I know for myself personally, I'm so hard on myself. And I was like, I would take myself down this rabbit hole, and then you stress yourself out about being stressed out. And it's just like,
Yeah, it's like a
dangerous.
vicious cycle.
It's super vicious. It's terrible. Okay.
It is, yeah.
What would be some of your favorite foods to suggest for anybody who wants to support their liver, support their hormones, and kind of just like balance out overall?
Yeah, I would say definitely get in some healthy fats. So avocado, coconut oil, coconut milk, nuts, seeds, some fatty fish like sardines. I know they're not the nicest smelling, but they're really good for you. But yeah, getting the healthy fats are going to help with balancing your blood sugar. But you're also, those are the building blocks for our hormones. So a lot of women that eat really low fat, they're going to have hormonal imbalances because they're not getting those building blocks for the hormones. So I definitely focus on the healthy fats, making sure you're getting a good protein. So some good like grass-fed meats, eggs. Eggs are really good because they have a lot of B vitamins in there too. So that's perfect to help with energy. Your greens, that's a great too. Really like any gentle, I call them gentle carbs. So like sweet potatoes are really great because they've got lots of fiber and lots of nutrients. And we do need carbs as women, I believe. We do need carbs. I don't like the whole keto thing.
No, it's
So
dangerous for women.
it is, yeah. So I definitely say the gentle carbs, lemon, like warm lemon water. I think you mentioned that earlier. It's a great start to the day.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
everything. If I don't have my warm lemon water, and I put a tiny little bit of sea salt in there too, but if I don't
Yeah.
have that first thing, like I feel it and it
hmm
helps me so much. I drink
hmm
it, I do my meditation, and then it's like I get to go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. Like it just helps.
Yeah.
And you're so
It
dehydrated
is.
when you wake up. You haven't been drinking water for like 6 to 10 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's great. And then the sea salt, I was just going to mention that too. The minerals are super nourishing, especially if you're really stressed. Like it's great for your adrenals and replenishing the minerals. And like fruits like apples. I love citrus fruits. Like I said, lemons, grapefruits. Grapefruit's really good for your liver as well.
Mhm. Okay,
hmm
really quick question about the fat, and then we will totally move on from food.
hmm
But this just brought up something for me. So post pill, I mentioned I struggle with my liver. So like anytime I drink, if I
hmm
eat super fatty things, I get almost like it feels like a
The
liver attack.
pain.
Yes, like
hmm
intense, so hard twice that I thought it was like a gallbladder attack, and I like projectile vomited. So TMI here. But then I learned I just have like a really like damaged needing love liver. My liver just like needs so
hmm
much love. And so I've actually kind of switched the way I was eating, because I was eating a lot
A lot of
of like
fats.
proportion. Yeah, a lot of like I would eat a full avocado in a sitting. I was drinking coconut milk in my coffee
hmm
every single morning, and I was still struggling with skin stuff, and I'd get those gut attacks or the liver kind of
hmm
like pains. And so when I cut out coconut milk and I went down to like half an avocado, and I'm just like more mindful about how much healthy fats I'm eating in a sitting, I suppose. I just
hmm
found like that made such a difference. So would that just be is that just a personal thing, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a really good point too. That's actually happened to me as well. And this is maybe a little TMI for some people, but to tell if you're not digesting fats properly, your poop is going to be floating and it's going to be kind of greasy like.
Okay.
So that's kind of a way to tell, like just for yourself, if you're not sure if you're digesting them or not. And like you said, you had the pain, so you could kind of tell that there was some struggle there. But yeah, so reducing your fats, if you are noticing that, is good. Or if you're going to supplement with like an enzyme, make sure it has ox bile in it. So normally our liver produces the bile to break down the fats, but if your liver is burdened, like you're talking about, you won't be producing that bile enough to keep up with breaking down the fats. So supplementing with the bile is a really good option. or taking digestive bitters as well. That's going to kind of help get things going. But usually with clients, I'll start them off with the enzyme, with the ox bile, and then I'll transition them to the bitters. That's more of like a maintenance sort of thing you can just take all the time. I wouldn't stay on enzymes like all the time just because it can impact the body, but
right.
That's a really good point.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that because, okay, so then I do take a liver supplement that has, I'm pretty sure it's ox bile is part of the, like the proprietary blend of whatever it is.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. That was a really good point. Another question. Okay. I said I was going to be done with the food thing, but I think food is so important and people need to arm themselves with information about it. Eggs. Why for some people coming off post pill are eggs potentially like they're so healthy. I know they are. And I love eggs so much. Why would they be like potentially, I don't know, not sit well with somebody who's coming off post pill?
Yeah, so if you have any digestive problems, the eggs can be something that you're reacting to. It could be a sensitivity that you've formed because the egg whites more so are reactive. Your body reacts to the proteins in the foods. So I always say if you're going to have eggs, some people can only have the yolks or just don't have them for a while, cut them out and then introduce them again and see how your body reacts. But everyone's different, right? So that's kind of like just general nutrition advice. But then again, like you said, you have to listen to your body. Like you notice, okay, if I cut back on the coconut milk and the fats, I feel better.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that because it's so much about bioindividuality and like what I might be sensitive to, you might be totally fine with, like I struggle with chocolate. It sucks. But of all the things, like there's a few, and I've got a few things that I don't eat because they just don't sit well with me or I've got intolerances or whatever. But for some reason, like even if it's raw, awesome chocolate, it just like, anyways. So, okay, moving on. I think we talked about how to balance after the fact. We talked about kind of like what happens during, I'm trying to think, is there anything that you want to add that I forgot to mention or that came up for you here?
One thing back to the food, definitely stay away from like canola or vegetable oils coming off the pill because they're inflammatory and we're already kind of inflamed. So I always say like try to stick to like butter or ghee if you can handle dairy, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. Those are the best options. And that kind of also makes us avoid the processed foods too, which have a lot of like the refined sugars, refined carbs, and all those nasty ingredients. Just sticking to the whole foods really is the biggest thing you can do. But yeah, the vegetable oils are like a huge, they're in everything. So it's so hard to avoid, but that kind of forces you to like make things at home and
eat better
make things from scratch. Yeah.
Oh, it's a cycle, right? Or not a cycle. What's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like a butterfly effect, I suppose, right? Because you start choosing better foods, so you start buying better foods, so you start making better foods and eating them, so then you're eating out less, right? So you're eating less like rancid oils like you were talking about. It took me a really long time to learn about oils and like how, okay, so they oxidize, right? That's why, so it basically like rusts our body systems, not great. Even like candles or perfume with fragrance in it. And I didn't know that fragrance could be such a hormone disruptor, or drinking out of plastic, I didn't realize could be such a hormone disruptor. Like there's all these, you could really take yourself down this hole of, oh my God, there's too much information. I don't know how to handle all of it. But I think at the end of the day, like based on what you and I talked about, as long as you are eating like liver supportive and whole foods as much as possible, decreasing your stress, right? Getting enough sleep, like supplementing when you need to supplement, go see a specialist, like work with Gabby or go see a naturopath, like just talk to somebody who can help you, right? Because I wouldn't have known about a B complex or magnesium. And both of those things helped me significantly on my journey. I would not have known about them had I not worked with a professional. So, okay. This was fantastic. Thank you so much. Seriously,
no problem.
This was such a good conversation. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that I might have missed?
I think that was everything. I think we covered a good chunk. I could go on and on talking about everything, but
I think I'm like, okay, maybe we should have another conversation a different time about food because it feels like we both geek out about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I have 2 last questions and I'm just going to kind of rapid fire ask them. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Number 1, what does live on purpose mean for you?
For me, it is living with intention and just being mindful of what you choose to do every single day. So like, do I truly love what I'm doing right now in this moment? Yes or no? And then that's going to get you more to like your authentic self, your authentic life that you're kind of meant to live, like your purpose.
Love it. Okay. And then second question, what is one thing that people can do today to create more intention in their lives?
I think just being more present and mindful with everything you do. Like, I think we can so quickly just kind of go day to day and just do things and be on our phones and not present. But if you're truly present in the moment with what you're doing, then I think that's how you live with more intention.
Oh, couldn't have said it better myself. Focusing on one thing at a time, just being present in the thing that you're doing is the secret to happiness. So that's awesome. Okay, Gabby, thank you so much. Seriously, I am so grateful for you as a human being. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. I'm so grateful that I get to interact with you every day on Instagram and see your posts because they really are so valuable. And for everybody who's listening, if you want to connect with her, again, her website is, what was your website again?
My website is gabbyborgerink.com. And then my Instagram is gbhealth_wellness. That's where I am primarily on Instagram. So you can find lots of
the links there.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So find her on Instagram and you can click through to her website that way. Okay, thank you so much. This has seriously been such a pleasure. I appreciate you so much and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.